Hi guys, welcome back to the channel for 7 Bloodfire Art and Story. I'm Cinthia McCracken and I'm an artist and a writer, and I dabble just a bit in a lot of other unnecessary or unusual things. Anyway, this is my first art video about which I am extremely excited. I thought about doing a video making video, but the art concept is more in line with my channel's immediate purpose / title. And I also wanted to celebrate my first book's upcoming finish line by doing some art that's geared towards something I've pulled from the story. I figured I could make this a 2-in-1 by walking over some basic steps that a lot of artists use. You know, sketching, layers, color harmony, just basic stuff. The program I use here is a free app called Autodesk Sketchbook. I am an Android Windows girl, but you can download it on Mac also. But just realize that Autodesk Sketchbook does not do everything, and finishing touches are actually better if they're done in a more comprehensive program like Photoshop. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the beginning process. The more you master the human figure, the better you'll get at using poses to tell a story or to show motion or emotion. As you get more advanced, you'll get into things like gesture and speed drawing, which will loosen up your hand and make your poses more fluid and natural. For me, when I already know what I'm already going to do, I often begin with the S-curved gesture figure with an oval head and the weird pincer hands, and then I move straight into the wooden doll form for the blockiness and the understanding how the body parts, major regions will interact with one another. Then I go to the naked form of the figure, even if it's just a censored version of naked, if the style allows. I never really draw my character with clothes on at first anymore, because I need to know how the pinched or stretched skin or fat will bend with the fabric, because with the softer clothes, especially the tighter form-fitting ones of many of the female characters, especially around the waist, you need to know how it's going to pull at the fabric. It will bring the clothing to life. You can guess the pinching and stretching areas and draw crappy wrinkles, like I did with the sleeves on this picture for lack of cloth knowledge. But it really is a lot easier with references and a basic structure underneath it all. So I usually will do a skeleton on a different layer than the background and refine each piece as needed when I run into different problems. After the figure, I will layer on the clothes. You saw at the start of the video that the clothes were drawn on after. So basically all the line work gets done first. Like even the hair will be on a different layer than the body and the clothes. So after the initial main line work form is completed, all of the unnecessary construction stuff is hidden or deleted, and every necessary layer of the main form is then merged. I sometimes refine and perfect the lines here, but that doesn't really work for every piece, especially not for those being intuited without references as they're being created. So often the later stages actually help to define the shapes properly so the lines can be fixed afterward. That's true for this piece. You may have noticed the color of the line work on my character's pants and boots here. They're not purple anymore. That's because I made copies of the line work layer, erased what I didn't need in each, and then I applied a hue, saturation, and darkness adjustment to each line area I wanted to match specific underpainting sections. Note that the underpainting is done under the line work, and in many layers that undergo their own hue, saturation, and brightness filters. So both the lines and the underpainting undergo the exact same filters, but to different degrees. One is focused on lighting, the other is on ensuring the forms are obvious, but not in a way that interrupts the artwork. As far as the filters for coloration go, both in the underpainting stage and the first round of details that soon follows, I keep my mind on where the source light is, its temperature and intensity, and on the environment's overall color and bounce lights. Anything nearer a warm light will be adjusted accordingly. Warmer, brighter, more saturated. Anything farther from it will be the opposite, even if it's minute. Cooler, darker, more grayed. Or more like its bounce light or the atmospheric ambiance if no obvious bounce light is made. As I intensify or gray out a color or increase or decrease the effect of the lighting on an item, I jump to the line layers and continue to make fine-tuned adjustments for the current section's unrefined line work. And I continue to fill in or fix the underpainting beneath both the lines layers and the detail shading and highlights layers. This is where the largest amount of time is spent because it's where most of the biggest, most noticeable details will make or break the picture. On some artworks, this is where I use a chainmail or other patterned brush, alternating between stamping, soft edge erasing, color changing, blending, and then more stencil brushing over the top of that. The multiple layers build up the line work and accumulate into some awesome textures and ornate effects. Matte paintings can actually be among the most meticulous versions of this technique, and I've only dabbled crappily in those to get an idea of what all is involved. You should be able to see here where I was changing the color of the lines to match the underpainting. I duplicated entire layers and erased what I didn't need, and then I used Sketchbook's simple all-in-one filter, which is hue, saturation, and brightness. They don't have contrast in this program, which would have been great, but they do have those three, and it works for almost everything you need. If you don't use black for your lines, then changing their color is really, really easy. I got frustrated trying to pick the correct purple to shade with because none of them were working. So I decided to stop trying to color pick and just use the same green from the background's darkest shadows, which are not black at all, but do look it. I started with the right sleeve on a separate layer, adjusted the levels, and then applied the distance, temperature, intensity rule regarding light. Then the left sleeve got the same treatment, but it is slightly lighter than the one on the right because, as the old saying goes, the darkest light is lighter than the lightest dark. So basically, the sleeve on the right is farthest from the light source, therefore is the darkest. The concept is applied and continues to the rest of the coat. One side darker, one side lighter and more saturated. And then I returned to smaller areas on a separate layer to add some special highlights, which is the first step of removing the image's flatness. This is where a minute, subtle shading that's tinted more with background and ambiance and bounce colors comes in to bring in the color harmony. Almost fully transparent brushes add an extraordinary amount of harmony and really makes the character start to merge with the overall image in color and in scheme. And here I begin to correct some funky looking anatomy. The fingers were blasphemous looking little creatures and they didn't get much better, but well, the goal wasn't perfection because the piece is small and the character is tiny. But again, cheats are okay as long as most of the artwork is cohesive and the focus is where it needs to be. If this were a much larger artwork, I would have perfected those little bastards. And again, that other hand is something else. But you have to start somewhere when you always avoid drawing hands, and it's a skill most of us need to work on. Hands. Drawn by hands. The shadow color is off, and it stays that way for a bit, but I eventually use an adjustment layer on it, so it's nothing to really worry about. All that needed to happen was that it looked a little more real than the other decrepit appendage. The shading of the skin should also follow the hue, saturation, and brightness rule. Side closer to the light versus side farther from it. Then I finally go in and start adjusting the face and hair. I started with the same purple color from the original completed line drawing in order to set a base to work from, but instead of drawing under it, I painted over it on another layer and erased everything outside of the new boundaries on the underpainting. I already know her ear is awful, but no references, no accuracy, and well, the hair saved it somewhat afterward anyway. But this was an exercise in memory. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it. You'll often see rosy cheeks and redness at the chin, nose, ear, and the eyelids and lips. I started adding to the entire side of the face because, well, hey, heads are not round. Think of them as a creepy or silly drama mask wrapped around a pole, by which I mean the neck. The hair I added extra layers to, and then I erased small portions of it lightly in order to make sure I could tell where the light hit versus what part was in shadow. These layers are set to partial transparency and worked over with color-picked strands using the lightest darks and darkest lights rules, plus a hint of the color harmony stuff. I thought about changing her hair to black to make it a little bit more like one of my characters, but I decided this chick's too old to be that character anyway, and decided she looked cooler with the purple-white hair, upon which I decided to build later for maximum effect. I figured, hey, maybe she's just another person that's got to deal with these cursed pieces of glass or crystal, or maybe she ignited this thing. So I wanted to add the demonic, dark, cloaked creatures from the Hellstar in my story, but I decided there was already so much going on that the colors wouldn't look right together. They would need more reds and blacks because of the hellfire and the type of curse they bring about. So yeah, stay focused. In other words, one story per artwork, especially when you're starting out. I already have a tendency to overwrite, overthink, overdo, and overplan. I don't need to overart too. Hair has to be treated with multiple rounds, by the way. Multiple rounds. I didn't even get close to how many rounds I could have needed here because, thank goodness, this piece wasn't about realism and didn't need highly concentrated details. This was about a chick whose face now looks kind of mannish to me in afterthought, who also has monster fingers and a shining glass thingy. I'm kidding. It's about basic art creation. Or is it? Come on, those monster fingers. They're calling me. I really want to go and fix them, but I know I shouldn't waste the time. I'm already done with it. By this point, all of my characters' edits are done, except for the final stuff that has to be done alongside the environment stuff. So I merged all of the character layers into one layer, which I then duplicated. I hid one copy in case I ruined one later during the next stage. That way I can easily recover the character and continue working. I've done this before. This is a very good step to have. Also, I added another layer adjustment to see what would happen to the hair and clothes, and to see if I would need any more adjustments on any other specific thing. If I did, I would have unmerged the layers, done the thing, and then remerged them before the next stage. I almost left her hair brown, but the floating shards magic glow right here would have affected it anyway, and it was just easier to show that if her hair remained, as I had designed it. Plus, after the Photoshop and contrast boost / color change, it looks way better later anyway, after I finished it. Right now you'll see a bunch of flames. This is just the flame designing process. I ended up undoing most of the trail that I did from there, so I'll probably talk through some of the other stuff I put on here about random other things. Yeah. But yeah, you can kind of watch along while I chit-chat. What else to cover? Backgrounds. You likely remember that the background for this picture was already done from the beginning of the video. I spent all day at a local coffee shop working on it using the same sketching, layering, and then refining process that I used on my character here. I treated the composition itself like a character by making those trees somewhat whimsical in shape and figuring out how their shape and posture could tell more of the story or frame the character. One of the main concepts with landscapes is that distance equals more blue and less saturation. And then objects are usually brushed over with the bounce light, the cast shadows, source light, atmospheric colors like the color of dust in the air or the pollution or smoke or clouds causing a colored ambiance. A lot of that is achieved with layers of color over the underpainting, which has the same process as the underpainting that I showed for the character here. The way to build a piece actually varies from artist to artist. Some do what I did in this piece, and others use layers like crazy. Others compose from scratch to finish on a single canvas. It all depends on your preference and whether or not you want to go over the same things multiple times one way or multiple times another way. It just depends. Honestly, I think layers work better for people who want a clearer look and more control, but I think both ways are important to practice and learn to in order to continue to improve. So here's the piece after the final contrast and brightness filter, and then one experimental overall color change that I liked a lot. I've got more art on my gallery on 7bloodfire.com, and I also host a couple of communities that you can find there, which are for artists, writers, indies, and even Leviathans fans. Join the mailing list on my homepage to get the newsletter for updates on events, news, and on book, art, and merch releases. You can follow me under the social media handle at 7bloodfire on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, or Wattpad to keep up with the latest. I've got really cute new premium writer shirts that say Master of the WritingSprint, but I recommend ordering a size larger because they're form-fitting. For the less experienced writers out there who are looking to improve some basic skills, I have a free writing tips book that you can find on my site, and I'll be adding other help items and videos as they're published. Please tell me in the comments about your processes for art or what your favorite medium is, and hit that like and subscribe button for more videos from this silly/serious weirdo. Yours truly, 7bloodfire. I look forward to sharing more with you guys, and I will see you guys later.